I pressed the wrong button. One second. Yeah, we can get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vridavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusantatami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasavisha Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamayah Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamritaduhe Namaha. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripa tamaham vande paramananda madhavam yam brahma varunendra rudra marutaha stunvanti divyaistavaihi vedai sanga padakramopanishadaihi gayanti yam samagaha ध्यानावस्थित तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यः Mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So we are almost coming to the end of the 8th chapter. We are actually on the second last section of this chapter. And as I've always said, this section of this chapter is where Krishna is really reminding us of how we should be looking at the world. And how do I shift my attention? A thing which in this day and age is extremely crucial because we are trying to shift our attention slowly and slowly from me to the world. And how I can start to see not myself as an individual, but I start to see myself as being part of the world. So by doing so, this really helps us not only just shifting our attention, but also trying to see how I can be of greater service to the world, which is what I have come to this world for. I have gathered enough skills, I've gathered enough of my desires and everything. But in this world, by listening to Bhagavad Gita, the idea is now there is no more wanting to take future births, which would be needed if I'm thinking only about myself, but to start giving and to adopt that. One second, I think Geeta's trying to. Hariyam Geeta. Irukku class point irukku. it's a new ஆமாமா அது வந்து there is an ஒரு மெசேஜ் ஒரு நெக்ஸ்ட் இன்னொரு லிங்க் அனுப்பிச்சிருந்தா அந்த லிங்க்ல ஜாயின் பண்ணுங்க. Yeah, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, no problem. Okay, okay, bye, bye. Yeah, Geeta was trying to join in, sorry. So that is the whole idea of wanting to shift our attention. Very, very important. And if this section did not expose us to the world and to the beauty in the world and everything that constitutes the world, that is also very important, because we look at the world as something which is outside of me. I'm here and the entire world is out there. That is how we are functioning today. But through this section, you actually try to understand that not only am I not just me, myself here, but I'm being part of the world, and that whole world itself actually exists in me. So that is the part which next chapter, 9th chapter, when we come to it, we'll be talking more about that. So in this chapter, therefore, the idea is slowly and slowly I start to bring that world into this aspect of the Saguna Brahman. And then how do I start to focus on Saguna Brahman or Ishvara is to bring in different techniques, which we have covered before. So anyway, that is what this whole 8th chapter is all about. And in this reflection time, last time itself, we started to reflect upon, as I think of myself being part of this world, what does the world mean to me? And we had a lot of discussion last time, that is 2 weeks ago, about how this world is really, is it really a wonderful place? We are very happy when everything goes well, and then we say, wow, this world is so beautiful, everything is in perfect conditions, the flowers just so beautiful, the sun and the moon, they're coming at the right time, the weather is just right. Of course, I know now in Michigan, there's a lot of snow, right? So sometimes when there's a lot of snow and it feels like, when you're driving on the ice, it's like as if you're walking on heels on ice, right? So I know you all have to be very careful about it. But at times, as beautiful as the snow seems, but we also worry about things, right? So is it really a wonderful place? Or, as Krishna would try to tell us here, that the samsara of the world we are living in is actually a dukkhalayam, okay? Now, of course, from a physical point of view, I have to take care of everything that I need to do. But this is more from the mental level. From a mental state, how do I look at this world? And the only reason he brings it is, of course, true that the world is a great place, but I also have to think about if I have to give up the world, which is what we are coming to here, is we are trying to evolve. We are trying to create a goal for ourselves, which is sort of beyond everything that I do today. Today we are in a rat race. We are constantly, being very competitive and trying to see how I can move forward. But Gita is trying to remind us that there is definitely another goal that we have to achieve. And in order to achieve that goal, I have to give up something. So it's like, when I'm trying to climb up a ladder, I cannot afford to be in the same rung. I have to give up the bottom rung in order to go to the next level. So in order to go to the next rung, I have to give up the lower rung, right? So too, what Krishna is trying to do here is he's only trying to remind us that if I continue to do what I'm doing today, then I will always get what I'm getting. Okay, this is a famous Guruji's statement. Actually, he always says this statement: if I continue to do what I'm doing, I will continue to get what I always got. So too, we don't realize that actually we are continuing to get what I've always got in many ways. And that is where the 6 things that we talked about last time is a reminder to say that I'm continuing to get what I'm getting, but I don't realize it, you know. So these are the things, each and everything, if it, whether I'm going for some objects or whether I'm going for some newer relationships, or whether I'm trying to get into newer situations, like for example, with all the snow, if we are trying to get away from Michigan and go to Florida, for example, is the problems going to stop? Not really. And that is where these 6 things which, our Acharya introduced to these 6 things in our course, I thought, I'll share that with you, which is what this whole thing, 6 things were all about. And we talked about, how in this world, everything that we are enjoying does have the opposite thing associated with it. And the second thing is that it is very temporary and it is dependent. There's a dependence on that object in order for my happiness. So if happiness is what I'm trying to seek in the world, then that happiness, I'm trying to superimpose my concept of happiness on something, and then I'm driving towards it. Like, for example, when I use the word driving, I'm just trying to, it's like when I'm driving on the roads and I see on a hot sunny day, there is this huge water in front of me. Okay. And I'm trying to be very careful that I don't, drive too fast on that water. And for whatever reason, that water thing is always in front of me. I'm just not driving on it. And then I realize it is an illusion, right? So too, what we are trying to do is we are trying to superimpose our happiness on this moving object. And this object is continuously moving away from me. I do get some amount of the happiness, but I don't get the whole happiness when I'm going towards it. So much so that I'm dependent on a moving target. And that's what this cause dependence really means, is I'm depending on something which is moving, it is never still, and I'm not able to get to it. So that is one part of it. Then draining indriyas is, we all know that as we grow old, our eyes, ears, everything becomes weak. And one other thing which is the COVID has taught us is the sense of taste. For example, a lot of people lost the sense of taste due to COVID. So idea being that as I grow older, my indriyas are draining, but yet my taste for things have not lost. I think it was Anand who said last time about this, angam galitam palitam mundam dashana vihinam dasham tundam. Even as I'm growing older, my teeth may fall off, but still I really want to bite on that hard muruk, So that's the whole idea, is to be aware of the problems. And then dissatisfaction guaranteed. Of course, any amount of thing that I'm going outside is never going to satisfy me. And they're always going to be of relative importance. So this is what, we kind of talked about, how that this world that I'm part of, I need to have the right relationship with the world. If I have the relationship with the world, that it is, finite, it is giving me happiness, I will always be disappointed. But if I look at that same world as an expression, as a manifestation of that Brahman, then my relationship will change, because then I recognize everything and everybody around me as none other than that Brahman. So that's why I put this up. And therefore, I need to start developing this practice of changing my vision on how I look at it. So we did this also. So we went through all these shlokas. I'm just putting this up just as a reminder. So, again trying to define Brahman as imperishable. And then in shloka number 12, a technique on focusing on that aspect of Brahman. And then in shloka number 13, about the significance of Om. And then in 14, we talked about, again, this aspect of if I'm convinced of this practice on how I can, focus on just Ananya Cheta Satatam Yamam Smarati Nityashaha Tasya Aham Sulabha Partha, then it's extremely easy to retain this, to go to the goal. So then by this, he actually, literally all the questions have been answered. Then from 15 to 22, he starts to focus more on how this infinite has to become a goal for us. And he says that, having understood this, people who have completely through knowledge understood this will never ever come and take another birth. It's like, for example, if, I'm in a particular job and for whatever reason, I have to quit the job, but yet there is that longing in me to fulfill some vasana. So I will try to take up another job just to satisfy that. So too, in this case, the idea is if I have completely realized what my true goal is, then I'll never really take another birth. So that part of it is explained here. Mam upetya punajanma na apnuvanti. So I'll never ever do this. Now, this section of 16 to 22, which we'll conclude today with the shlokas 22. But before we go here, I want to ask, is there any questions? I know poor Geeta has not been able to join. Yeah. Any thoughts or anything that people want to share? Okay. So this section is sort of, it's a little more fact-based, but it also gives us an exposure to our idea of the universe. So for us right now, we don't really think too much about, how big is this universe, right? But our rishis have really taken the time and spent and have really understood in terms of the time and the space element. For us today, 365 days a year, I mean, I know we're coming to the end of 2023, and we're already looking to see what are my goals, what are my New Year resolutions for 2024. Our mind is so focused only this is 1 year, right? But the idea here, what Krishna is trying to bring through, Vyasa, of course, has written this, is trying to get us to understand that time element is something that was already thought about, discovered long time ago. And we need to think about this entire time in a very different way, all the way up to what is creation and how does that happen. So it's really a kind of an introduction to sort of cosmology, if you will. So in shloka 16, for example, he starts to explain about the world of Brahmaloka. So far we know only our own loka, which is the buhu, the time that we spend here. So what Krishna is trying to say here is, even if I do, even if I try to get to the next world, so which is better than what it is here. Now, is that something which is like far, far away, beyond the sun, beyond everything? He's saying, no, it's not. It is all within the same time-space element. So the only way then we can measure on how we are evolving is by matter of time. So how much of time do we have? How much, how can we look at it all the way up to the loka of the creator, which is Brahma Loka? And what he wants to tell us is that even if you live all the way up to Brahma Loka, you are still nothing but this individual. And so the goal is something which is far, far beyond. It is beyond all these lokas. So that is why he gives us this idea of what are the 14 worlds. So Buhu, Buvaha, Suvaha, Mahaha, Janaha, Tapaha, Satyaha. And Satyaha is the loka of Brahma Loka. And then the 14 worlds, the lower worlds below Buhu, all this. And the key thing, of course, for us to recognize is that these 14 lokas does exist within time and space element. And our goal is to go beyond time and space, out of this time and space. That is really what liberation is all about. That is what moksha is. And so any amount of work we do, we'll still be in this. That is what he wants to show. So Brahmaloka is trying to, so does attaining Brahmaloka make us, is the ultimate goal? He says, no, not even that is the highest goal. When one attains the highest goal of Brahmaloka, here what happens is Brahmaji will be giving the same Vedanta lectures that we're listening in the Bhuhu, in our earth. And at that point in time, also one has a choice, okay, my mind has become now so purified, and whatever Vedanta lectures I'm listening to it will just completely give me that clarity. And that clarity is so good that I'm like totally merged into that Paramatman, So that's what going to Brahmaloka can get. But even at that point, if I do have some kind of a vasana, there is a good chance that I might come down to the lower worlds, all the way up to the earth, Bhuhu, So this is the whole idea which he then gives about Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aha Brahmana Viduhu Ratrim Yuga Sahasra Antam Te Antaha Ratra Vidaha Janaha. So then this whole description of Brahmaji's day, we talked about how one day of Brahma is actually 1,000 cycles, and each of these they're divided into so many years. And I just looked up Wikipedia actually to see where are we now in Kali Yuga. So, Kali Yuga, which is the shortest one, we've already gone through so much. We are now in Kali Yuga. And in Kali Yuga, we are as of 23, which Kali Yuga began about 5,000 years ago. And it still has 426. Does that make sense? Yeah, I guess so. 426, 876 years are left. So Kali Yuga will end in the year 428, 899. So that pretty much tells us that many, many generations, even after us, will still be in Kali Yuga. So the significance of this essentially shloka, as I said earlier, is there are so many things that comes to my mind when I think about the shloka. Number one, on a very, very practical level, can you imagine our rishis? They did not go to any laboratory, or they did not measure the time to come up with this significant number, and to be able to predict how many years more will happen before Brahmaji sleeps, So before the next creation, so to speak. So to me, it's really mind-boggling when our rishis have come up with all these numbers. And I'm sure our younger generation now will probably just say, how do you know it's true? Because we believe that, we have this Sukshma Sharira, right? We are the three bodies. We have the gross body, which we are interacting with the world. And then the Sukshma Sharira, which has all this mind, intellect, complex. And it is through a very, very pure intellect and mind that they have come up with all these numbers. So it gives a great appreciation, so that's one thing this shloka really tells us. But the second very important thing that it's trying to tell us is that if you're really thinking about moksha, I'm sure a lot of people will say, oh, okay, then I'm not really thinking of moksha because it's going to take a long time for me to get to a level which is outside the sphere of influence, right? So the idea is that do I really want to come back? Even if I come back into this world, I could be in any one of those lokas. I could be any of the animals, the birds or ant or anybody. There's just all those possibilities exist for us because of the previous baggage that we have. So, but then we are told that through our shastras, that in this birth itself, if I recognize, if I'm able to completely understand this knowledge and I'm able to abide in this knowledge, I can realize today, so I can put an end to this whole birth cycle, you know, and that's a phenomenal, I think, goal to look forward to and achieve, and something to really work on, you know. And this can happen only, I think, if we have cultivate this aspect of vairagya. And vairagya, of course, doesn't happen just like that. It has to happen with the whole sadhana chatushtaya and viveka. So, that I think is the most important significance of these shlokas. So then, in shloka number 18, Krishna starts to now explain about this cosmic creation. He starts to say about how, how does the day of Lord Brahma look like? What happens when he gets up? And then how does it, what happens when he goes to sleep, to the whole world? So, it's almost like this example of the movie. We talk about in a movie how the entire movie is actually completely compressed in those films, and I don't know how this, in this day and age, how they stored this. Obviously, they're storing it in some, in a drive or whatever. That whole movie thing, which probably goes into thousands of gigabytes and all that, the whole thing just comes to life as soon as you go to a movie theater or even to Netflix or anything like that. So that part of it is what he talks about here. Avyaktat vyaktaya sarvaha prabhavantyah ragame ratrya game praliyante tatreva vyakta sanyake. So he says about, in the case of Brahmaji, I mean, just like for us too, when I go to sleep, my entire thing folds, right? So too for Brahmaji, what happens to a Brahmaji's day and night? So Krishna wants to point that it's really very close to what we go through in our day and night. So when our day begins, automatically, I start to think about, okay, the first thought that comes to my mind is, of course, that I'm Sunita, and then what is my day going to look like? And then I start to interact with the world, right? So it's the same thing in the case of Brahmaji also. When he sleeps, it really goes into that pralaya mode. Pralaya actually means, pralaya is in a macro scale. In our case, it is really micro, So, when Brahmaji sleeps, the whole creation then goes into a kind of an avyakta state or an unmanifest state. And that is what is said here, Ratri agame praliyante. So when the night falls, the whole world goes into this unmanifest state. And when he gets up, the entire world again comes into being, the whole creation. So from our stage, it's only what happens to me. But in the case of Brahmaji, the whole world comes into being. So that's the idea of how this cosmology has been described in Bhagavad Gita here. So essentially, all the animals, everything, all the living beings, they actually become manifest in the beginning of the day of Brahma. Now, in this shloka 19, Shri Krishna now elaborates on how does the world dissolve? How do they, how all these beings then go into this unmanifest state? Just like for us too, basically our entire world actually just collapses into this unmanifest. As soon as you get up in the morning, it's almost like, the sun is shining on me. And so everything comes back into life, right? So that's what in shloka number 19, he says, Bhuta gramaha sa evayam bhutva praliyate ratrya game Ratrya game avashah partha prabhavantya paragame. So he says, so the same number of beings that were there before during the day, they come back. So the same multiple number of beings that are being born again and again, they dissolve helplessly the coming of night, O Partha, and they come again like the coming of the day. So nothing very difficult to understand here. But the key thing to remember here is avashaha. The word avashaha is very important. It means, helplessly. So he says that, all the beings, even if they are plants, animals, etc., we're all stuck in this wheel of life, the wheel of samsara. And if we do not, actively, if we do not understand this whole wheel of life or samsara, we will be stuck in this. It's like, what is that? Ferris wheel, I think it's called Ferris wheel or something, where, and again, this thing, what I used before, if you're this rat race, you'll always be a rat, you're not going to improve upon it. So in many ways, I mean, in countries which are developing, all this technology and innovations and everything, yeah, they're all great, but I need to understand how those technology and innovations are helping me evolve mentally, because it's only in the mental area that really we are evolving. So in Shloka 20, now he starts to explain about a little further on this whole dissolution sequence. So how can I really escape from this cycle itself? So he says, paras tasmatu bhavaha anyaha avyaktaha avyaktat sanatanaha yaha sa sarveshu bhuteshu nashyastu na vinashyati. So he starts to explain about how that there is something which is beyond this manifest and unmanifest. There is something beyond this day and night cycle. So just like for us, when I've gone through one day and I've gone, I go to sleep in the night. If the previous night, if I don't make any kind of resolution for myself that, tomorrow I'm going to change a little bit. And I always remember Madhuri always reminding us about this mind, 4 things, going through introspection, and then trying to understand how my day went and trying to see what can I do for the next day. Everything is connected to a mind, If I don't do this, I'll be caught in the cycle. So that's why he says that there does exist something higher than this unmanifest, which is eternal. So long as I'm in this day and night cycle, I'll always be in the cycle, but I need to get out of it. So that's what then Shloka 20. And then in 21, he tries to explain about how that state is, which is beyond that unmanifest state. So I just want to mention that today I may have to leave a little early. Probably in about 5-10 minutes, I might finish it, because I have to catch the bus to go to Ernakulam. At 7:45, they're supposed to come, but I'm waiting for the call to come through. Somebody will call me. So in Shloka number 21, he talks about Avyaktokshara ityuktaha tam ahuhu paramam gatim yam prapya na nivartante taddhama paramam mama. Can somebody remember, or this yam prapya na nivartante? There's another very, most of you would have known the shloka. Are you reminded of anything here? Yad gatva na nivartante. From chapter 15th, what is that shloka? They talk about na suryo, na chandra, na pavakaha, yad gatva na nivartante. Those who reach it never come back. So from chapter 15, So the same thing here, he says, so people who have understood my real nature. So if we understand who we really are and how I am none other than Paramatman, and that is the highest goal, avyaktat akshara iti uktaha. So know ourselves as the unknown, as the unmanifest, the imperishable. That they say is the highest goal. and they who reach it never return again. That is my highest abode. So something which is way beyond the day and night, the world that we live in, that absolute infinitude. When I recognize that I am that infinitude, I'll never ever come back. And then in shloka number 22, which completes the last section here, he starts to talk about how Purushaha Paraha Partha. He says, Arjuna, that I'm the Purusha which is beyond that. Bhaktya Labhyas Tvananyaya Yasyantas Thani Bhutani Yena Sarvamidam Tatam. So the highest Purusha, that level, that state, he says, O Partha, is attainable by only 100% focus on him. So again, does that mean that I just need to sit in meditation and focus on him? Not necessarily. So long as I understand that absolute state, which of course takes a lot of effort in terms of developing the clarity of mind and the purity of thought. So once I do that, then that thing is easily attainable. Yasya antahastani bhutani, within whom all beings dwell and by whom all this is pervaded. So beautiful section where he starts off to explain the levels in which the all beings are in, and how that state of that absolute is even beyond all these 14 levels. Okay. So in the next section, which is only about 4 shlokas, we will talk about what are the 2 paths which are available for people. One path, of course, is this forward-looking path to liberation, and the other path where people get into what happens to them. So that part of it also we will discuss. Okay. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you so much.
Hari Om.
You're welcome.